Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine. Giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, it's episode 180. I am Mike Mylan. That is Blaine Berkshire, listening to Mike and Blaine, Business, Beer, and BS. What's up, Blaine?
I am ready to rock. And also just checking my mic because a couple of weeks ago I had the wrong one. So I'm like, oh, I better just check. Weird timing to do that, but I just found out I'm on the right mic. So hopefully I sound good.
Oh, I just happened to think of, I have to be in Austin next week. We might have to, I know I didn't tell you that beforehand, but I got invited to a mixer for South by Southwest. It's like the day before it starts. Never happens to me. Yeah.
Those are fun. Those are fun stuff down in Austin during South by Southwest, man. Lots of cool stuff going on there.
Yeah, so we may have to do a different show next week because I got to be there at 7. So I can't do this, then get there. You know.
Let me know. We'll figure it out.
All right.
For all our screaming fans out there, we'll figure it out.
All right, so if you're already confused, which most people that listen to this show get confused right off the bat because we don't know how to start a show, we don't know how to end a show. We know all the other parts. We
stumble through the middle.
But basically what we do is we come up with a topic about 10 minutes before the episode. So if you're looking for planning, if you're looking for a really smooth and polished show, this is not it.
But if you want something timely and topical, this is it. Because we are on top of it. We are on top of it. Yeah.
Definitely that, right? Because it's happening now. So usually what happens is something that we're talking about, something that's going on in our business, we start with that. And today it's about being scared. It's about, just things that scare you in your business. I mean, if maybe you've been that way. I felt that way this week. I'm like, I got a little scared at the end of last week, and it's probably an irrational fear, but we'll talk it through, right?
Let's do it. It hits everybody. That's every entrepreneur feels that, and usually on a somewhat regular basis. So yeah, good topic for today. And before we dive into that, we got our beer of the week and our beer sponsors. So what are you drinking this week?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Neighbor Pat, one of our beer sponsors, brought me down some beer, right? So Neighbor Pat came down. All right. So it's bittersweet. First of all, I got good news and bad news on Neighbor Pat. Good news and bad news. Let me start with the good news. He found a fantastic beer I'd never had before. I have had stuff by this brewery. It's 903 Brewery. I've had that before, but I have never had. Oh, I think we've talked about them before. As a matter of
903,
fact,
yeah.
903.
I think we have. Yeah.
All right. So this is a carrot cake.
Oh,
this is a carrot cake brew. So
that looks
we actually sampled it because I could not wait the extra day. So last night I sampled it and it tastes like carrot cake, right? It's like,
nice.
So it's very cool. So I'm going to have a carrot cake. It has nothing to do with the topic outside, unless you're afraid of carrots.
And if you are, well, I'm going to talk about my beer, so you don't have to be afraid anymore. So I always look for a beer that is directly related to the topic. And this week, I did not have one that even made any sense in the fridge. So I've just got one this week called from Pueblo Vida called Order Up Breakfast Stout. It's got a really kind of a cool can.
I like it. Yeah.
And it is delicious. And I am such a stout guy. Like I love stouts, but this one, so they call it a breakfast stout, but it feels very much like a bit like an Irish stout. And it actually feels a lot like, it tastes a lot like a Guinness to me. And I have my appreciation for Guinness has gone up 1,000-fold over the last few years. And it actually, if I go to a bar and they don't have like a nice local craft beer, I get a Guinness because it's a really nice, really well done beer. Despite, I think some people don't think so, probably just because it's a big brand. But for a big brand beer, it is a very good beer. And it's actually super low alcohol. It's like 4.2 or something. So it's actually just a nice kind of light beer that people think is heavy. But this is a really nice beer. Order up. So Pueblo Vida. I don't know if we featured them before.
No, I've never heard of them. So new ones. And I'll tell you what, I want to finish Pat's story too, right? Because remember I said the good news was he brought down beer. He brought down a good beer, something I never had before. The bad news, the boys played bags last night. So the neighborhood men got together and did little bags last night. So before the other two guys came down, Pat and I did a one-on-one competition, right? Just to see how it is. Now, there's one thing you don't want to happen in this neighborhood, right? There's just one thing. It has only happened once, ever, in like 4 years since we've all lived together. It's only happened once, and that's called getting skunked. That means in bags, the person you're playing gets 21 points and you get 0. You don't even score a point the entire time. And it's only happened once. And Pat is the person that owned the title. He is the only person that's got skunked. Now, he's doubled it up. I don't think we'll ever catch him. No. So I beat him 21-0 last night. I'm like, do you realize the board's over there, right? You have to put it in the hole, right? Yes. So anyway, he got skunked last night. But you mentioned Guinness. So neighbor Thomas and neighbor Chris came over, and neighbor Thomas is getting ready to. He's saving up. I think it's a fall trip. He's going to Scotland and Ireland.
Nice.
Now, when you mention Guinness, I think I've said this before. You know the cans, because it works best with nitrogen and stuff like that rather than carbon. Was it carbon dioxide? I don't know what it is. However they carbonate beer. But there's these little balls, and I somebody else is going to have to explain what that is. These little balls that are in there. But if you collect 100 of those, there's a special VIP part of a tour at the Dublin Guinness brewery. Yeah, so because I've actually had Kim, who's bought merch right off of our website, right? She's actually taken bags of these things over to Ireland and gotten a special VIP tour of Guinness because of it. And I guess it's a ridiculously VIP experience. So, and by the way, here in Texas, if you're buying the bottles, take them to like a Specs or a Total Wine or something like that, and they will exchange the caps for the balls.
Nice.
So just 100, just 100 gets you in there. So that's a good thing. That's actually pretty cool.
And I would recommend if anyone's out there wants to get Guinness, get the cans. Everyone thinks that bottles are great, but the cans actually have a little disc in the bottom, and you just pop it and you flip it straight over and pour it straight down. It'll fill right up to the top. It'll look like chocolate milk, and then those little bubbles will start to settle, and it'll just get dark from the bottom all the way up. And it's almost like it's on tap. Like, it's just terrific. So, and you don't get that with a bottle. So I kind of even surprised they do Guinness in bottles because the can is a lot better.
Yeah, right on. So anyway, that was my thing on that. So we do have beer sponsors, right? So if you go to Mike and Blaine, our website, if you go to mikeandblaine.com, we've got beer sponsors where you can just buy us a beer. That's actually how we fund the show, believe it or not. I'll just be honest with you. We got hosting fees. You got, what else we got? You got your Riverside thing. You've got, we got our merch store, our website. So it's not a lot, right? It's not a lot. It didn't take a lot to run this podcast, but what you do pay in your beer sponsorship actually puts us above water. It makes this not a hobby. We're like barely into making money. We're like at $1 now or something like that.
We have enough. If by the end of the year we'll have enough to buy a beer with profit.
There you go.
And split it.
There you go.
It'll be a cheap one.
So our other sponsor, Karen Hairston. Karen Hairston, actually, I had a meeting with her and a potential client this week. It was great. 3ssmartconsulting.com, 3ssmartconsulting.com. She's up in Michigan, but she knows her stuff, man. Karen Hairston, if you have not checked her out on LinkedIn or her website, 3ssmartconsulting.com, go check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah. You went to sleep
for a second there. I don't know if it was you or me, but one of us froze for
That's all right.
a minute. I just keep talking.
Yeah. You'll just cut it out and post whatever happened.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The cool thing with our feed is live. It'll get a little sketchy, but you guys out there, you are the ones that'll know which one of us froze. But when I actually get the feed, it'll be perfect. So just pretend and keep going. The other one we got to thank is Rachel Barnett with Gentle Frog. If you need to learn QuickBooks, you have a small business, you want to learn QuickBooks, go talk with Rachel, gentlefrog.com. But also go to her YouTube channel, which is YouTube at Gentle Frog, and you can find all kinds of terrific videos that will teach you how to use QuickBooks to the nth degree.
Yeah, and then I guess we got to say hi to Devin, right? Devin is the biggest LSU fan in the world. Matter of fact, I'm wearing the pants right now that I bought in his store, right? Or the LSU store, when we went to LSU Alabama together. So that was kind of a good game, fun time, lots of pre-party. ESPN Game Day was there. It was a great time in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Are those purple pants?
They're actually black, but they got the LSU logo kind of up at the, they're actually black.
Big purple pants with some yellow or something on them. That sounds awesome.
I'm not an MC Hammer type of guy.
You should get some like purple and yellow checkered pants and the big parachute ones. That would just be awesome.
Yeah. You know, that was one thing in my life my dad wouldn't give me. Now parachute pants to me were different. We called them something different. They were like a nylon material pant, but they weren't big and baggy. They had almost like cargo pants, but made out of nylon material. And that's what we called them growing up, was these parachute pants. My dad would not let me buy a pair at all. He says, no, it's a fad. You're not doing any fads. So I was the kid. And it was probably more about money than it was fad. But he's like, no, you're not doing that.
He's probably wise. Wise advice.
Yeah, I'd probably tore them up the first day. Got a big rip in them. Most expensive pair of pants I ever had, and I tore them up first day.
Yeah, exactly. Someone walks up, man, you look like a fiddle hopper. What the heck are you doing with those pants?
Oh, you forced it. It was a good one. I think it was a force. I think it was a force.
Yeah. All right. Well, I didn't think it was. I thought I slipped that in there pretty good. Our word of the day.
You did. Yeah, you got a word of the day. We got two secret words. One's for diddle hopper. The other one is.
Well, you can't force it. You'll just have to listen through the show and see if it sneaks out. And you guys can guess at what the secret word is, or phrase in this case.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. So that if you want to sponsor us, right, it's $5, the best $5 you're ever going to spend. I guarantee it, because it's lives forever. It's a $5 that lives forever. Just go to mikeandblaine.com and click on the thing that says buy us a beer. You're literally probably buying us a beer.
Yes, exactly. And you can go longer than that. We have actually a bunch of sponsors all the way out to the end of 25 already. So, you can always go buy a few extras and get a few more weeks of us talking about you. And, thanks for listening to the show.
Yeah, we're at like 2 or 3 years straight with a sponsor, right? We haven't had a week that hasn't been covered.
No, I don't know how far we'd have to go back, which is really cool and really fun. So, much appreciated to you guys. And now we're going to dive into the middle part.
Yeah. So here's what happened. I keep weird stats, right? Just as to push myself. And I keep like a weekly sales tracker. And my first year, I'm like going, okay, how many weeks did I have zero revenue? Right. How many blank weeks? Because you're getting started. Sometimes you don't sell something every week. And the second year, I didn't have any of those. First year, I had a handful or a little better. The third year, I don't worry about blanks anymore, but I have minimums. Like, hey, I'm trying to get 1,500 a week now, just as a minimum. Well, I don't know what happened last week, but I had like 3 of my folks, 3 subscriptions with failed payments. It was like weird. And I think it's not failed because it's insufficient funds. It is insufficient funds, but it's failed because there's a trend out there where people have specific accounts just for subscriptions and only put in enough money for the subscription. Have you seen that?
No. Interesting, though. Mm-hmm.
But I normally have 0 of these things. If I have 2 all year, that's kind of a big deal, right? I'm like, oh, shit, this happened. And it's usually something like a expired card or something like that. Well, I had 3 of them last week. And at the time that it happened, I was really low. I mean, I wasn't even close to trying to get $1,500, right? Is my minimum that I always try to bank on is I'm going to get at least this. So it scared me. And I'm like going, why am I scared? How do I feel scared? I likened it back to how many times I felt scared in the last 25 years and what was it that caused it, right? I remember the first time I felt scared was I'm going to leave being a state trooper. We've talked about this before. I'm going to leave being a state trooper and all the security of that check and the benefits and all that and go do it on my own. That was the first time I felt scared, in business was, holy shit, I don't have the security of a state job anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I want to talk about today was, hey, I call it fear factor, man. I don't know if it drives me. I don't know if it scares me. I don't know if it's an obstacle. I don't know if it's a key to success. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's amazing for businesses, like my experience in the last 25 years, dollars are number one. There's other reasons. There's other things that'll come up that can absolutely scare a business owner. I'm sure we'll tap into those. But I would say number one, almost all the time, especially with a small independent business, is money. It's cash flow. Like that's sales. And when I say cash flow, it's also, it's not just straight like cash coming in the door. It's like you said, like, it's revenue. Is your revenue growing? Is it, like that? That's the number one that'll tighten up your chest and keep you awake at night.
Well, and I think probably if you really think about it, even all of the other fears that you might have are connected to money somehow. Because one of the things that popped into my head was, the main reason I sold the hotel staffing company back in 2000, what was it, 11 now or something like that, or 8. I think it was 8, somewhere in that range. I'd have to go look, but is because there was a big push on immigration, right? A big push, and they were moving everybody towards this new system at the time. So this might help me date it, where you actually put in people's name and social security and all that up front, and it was called E-Verify, right? And you would verify that the person had the legal right to work in the United States. Well, for whatever reason that year, I had almost 500 employees, and I had like 40 of them with mismatched social security numbers. And the IRS sent me 40 letters. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And it isn't that you're in trouble. It's saying, hey, you submitted paperwork on this and we can't find it, right? And luckily, I had copies of everything of what we submitted, and I had copies of what people had provided me. So the only thing you have to do at that point in time, I don't know what it is today, but at that point in time, you had to go back to the employee and say, hey, I need another form of identification because maybe a name doesn't match. It could be a misspelling. It could be, there's all this weird stuff. It could be nothing.
Yeah.
Well, but what ended up, you lose a handful of employees because they're using fraudulent ID, right?
Yeah.
And that was enough. That one experience was enough to scare me out of the hotel staffing business. Because at the time, if you remember, they were raiding Tyson chicken farms. They were raiding all these different places around the country and gathering people up, 20, 30, 40, just almost like today, right? They're gathering people up and deporting them. I'm like going, holy shit, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the face of that. So I'm like going, I was really still a small business, even though I had 27 different cities I was operating in. I was still a small business. And it scared me. I didn't have the resources to fight that battle.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many, like, there's fears that are related to an actual problem, like something that falls on your desk, right? But a lot of fears are what ifs. And they're valid. They're absolutely valid. But, as a business owner, I think at times it's like you got to sort of separate and look at the potential as well, right? Like, because there's some things you're like, yeah, it's fear today. Some of it fear tomorrow is like, yeah, no, I get it. And like right now, there's a lot of angst all over the place. There's a lot of uncertainty, right? we don't know how it'll play out until you let it play out. So it's yeah, but I get it. It's almost all tied to money, like you said.
An irrational fear that I had when I started doing this financial consulting and training and teaching, especially when I was training bankers, right? And I'm teaching them how to do this stuff. I'm like going, what if I spend the next 10 years teaching thousands of, people, and I'm successful enough to get a Wikipedia page, right? This is me just like thinking out of the box. And I'm like going, and then they discover I was wrong and I collapsed the economy. But like whatever I was saying was so wrong that everybody was doing it. And it was the thing that broke the economy. They could trace it back saying, oh, well, you were doing what that man said and he don't know shit.
It's so funny in two ways, because in one way it's like you're so like you're so confident that you think you're going to actually have that big of an effect on the entire economy, and at the same time lacking confidence in what you are offering, even though you know the stuff inside out. And that is like, man, that is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of level right there. Like,
that's that super imposter syndrome. You're like going, I think I know what I'm doing, but I don't really feel comfortable.
Oh yeah. And I've gone through that a lot of times, especially with dry run, because it's we're developing software. It's innovative. It's innovation stuff, right? And it's like everyone you talk to, you're like, Penn, they do it. I think we got this right. But I will say that over the last probably 6 months, I talk with the CFOs every day, and that has helped with that, because they just validate and they say, yeah, I get what you're doing. And it's awesome. Like, you're doing the right thing, right? It's that helps a lot, because as we started to first talk with them, I was scared shitless. So I'm like, what the hell that's my feeling is, what the hell do I know? Well, enough, right? Like I apparently we got her pretty solid. So, but that's an issue, especially in innovation, right?
Yeah. So my thing about the imposter syndrome is like, I know that's not true. I've had enough people like you. I've taught it enough at the graduate program and enough CEOs of banks to know what I'm teaching is right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is weird. This popped in my head as soon as you said that. I'm like, what is it, a fear, or why did I think? I just had a thought about it. It wasn't really as much of a fear, but I think it was a funny thing. Like, oh no, what if I'm wrong? And for whatever reason, last night I had a dream. Right, this is going to be a little bit of BS, but it's about the scared feeling. And the dream was that my car had gotten broke into, which is kind of a dumb thing. But then it reminded me as soon as I woke up, like, going, that happened in Chicago to me. That happened in Seattle to me. My car's been broken into twice. And it's just a feeling. Oh, matter of fact, and my house was robbed, right? My house was robbed by one of my kids' friends, right? So that's a whole different story in of itself, right? They should, anyway. But it's the worst feeling in the world. I cannot imagine any other worse feeling than you feel vulnerable, you feel betrayed, you feel, I don't know. It's like, it's the worst feeling is to get broken into or stolen from or whatever. So, I'm very cognizant of that and try not to create that feeling in others.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll go into a little BS on fear stuff. I have a completely irrational fear of sharks. I don't know why. I don't even swim. I don't probably partly because of sharks. But when we were at the coast last spring, going up the coast, I am not kidding you. When we would sit there and we'd watch the surfers, which was super fun to watch the surfers, but I was positive I would see one of them eaten by a shark. Like, I'm just sitting there. One was going to get eaten. One was going to get eaten. Completely irrational fear. But it's building up in my head now that I'm like, I don't really think I'd want to go in the ocean and go for a swim, because I would assume that I'm going to get eaten by a shark.
Yeah, so I wouldn't
grew up in the prairies in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm you, I'm not watching Sharknado because that pulls the sharks out of the ocean and puts them in Edmonton.
Well, I got to tell you, because I'm sure that there's something to do with that is at some point on, I think it was probably Facebook or something, they got the shorts, and I must have clicked on one with a shark one time because it was a big, like, great white going by. I'm like, holy crap. Guess what's in my feed all the time now is like sharks. And I can't help. I got to watch. And there's people in the ocean. Okay. There was one little BS here, but you would not believe it. Apparently it's on Shark Week. There is these guys that made a shark cage, but they made it out of plexiglass. So it'd be clear. And a giant great white comes from underneath it and goes through it like it's tinfoil and just misses the guy in the cage. And now it's smashed and he's trying to get to the boat. You got to see this thing. Like, he goes through it like it's paper. And I'm just like, oh my God.
I've got, I've jumped out of airplanes. I don't have a fear of heights. Water scares the shit out of me. It does.
Yeah,
I took a tourist, a tourist scuba course, and you only go down 30 feet, and that scared me enough. I'm like, I don't know if I can get back. If something bad happens, I don't know if I can get up there in time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a water person either, and shark person. They're probably connected.
Yeah, because there's no chance. Then I read a story about a guy in a boat that was capsized and it sank to the bottom of the ocean or something like that. Ocean, not really ocean because they could get to it, but I'm going to say he's 2 miles there, not 2 miles. He's enough down where they could still get to the boat.
Okay. Yeah.
But the boat flipped over and he happened to be in the bathroom, right? He was in the bathroom when it happened. His friends were out just partying, having a good time. It's like a luxury yacht boat type thing. The boat flips over, from a wave. He gets thrown to the ceiling, and where he's at in the boat, there's enough air trapped there. And he gets out, goes by people that have died, right? Because they just get drugged to the bottom of the ocean. They're nowhere around any air. But he's out and he's able to move to one other place because when it flipped over, he's moving towards the bottom of the boat and there's more air at the bottom of the boat, which is now the top of the boat. And he sits there for like two or 3 days and is rescued.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
That guy will never get on another boat. Probably in a bathtub or any elevator. I don't know if you'd get in a car after that. I would be so claustrophobic after that.
Yeah. So when we think about fear, though, I mean, there are people that I had it. I had a panic attack in business when I couldn't make payroll, right? I didn't think I was going to make payroll. I ended up making it, but I didn't think I was going to make payroll in the hotel staffing company early on before I figured out what cash flow was and the financial gap and all that type of stuff. I'm like going, what the hell? Am I having a heart attack? I'm in my 30s, early 30s. Well, it's not a heart attack because it was probably the best shape of my life at that point in time. And I could not get control, right? I just walked, just paced. I drank water. I didn't know what, and just tried to calm down. And finally, it took, I think, 2 hours. It might have been 15 minutes. Who knows? But it seemed like it went on forever. And it was all because of that. And I'm like, I hadn't felt that type of fear. And that so much that it just woke me up in the middle of the night. And it was all about, oh my God, I'm waiting for this one check to come in. And thank God it came in.
Oh,
it just came in. Remember, because we had to get checks. There was no ACH. Yeah, we had to get checks.
I've talked about this. I probably on the show a bunch of times, that lonely walk to the mailbox. And like, I can, after 20 years, I can picture like the entire walk when you're under stress, going to the big wall of mailboxes in the building that, where our office was, click and open it up and going, this better be here because I got to pay everybody on Friday. And, we've all felt that, like, and that is probably the biggest fear I ever had in business. Was it was less about me is always about making sure I make payroll to pay that staff. Like that is the biggest fear all the time, right?
Yeah, because I mean, it's a joke for people now. Oh, the check's in the mail. Dude, when I heard that, it couldn't come fast enough. And I hope they weren't lying, right? Checks in the mail is like a lie. You hope they weren't lying that they didn't, actually send it. But here's what I like about, what we're doing right now with this conversation. It's the cash flow and making payroll and those type of things. I mean, you have a product, Dry Run, that helps people do that, right? That helps people not have that, I can't sleep at night, I'm staying up, I wonder if I'm going to make payroll. That's what Dry Run's there for, is to model those scenarios and help you avoid it. So can you tell us about Dry Run?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know what? Almost everyone that talks to us today is a CFO. They're either a fractional CFO, they're helping multiple businesses. And so if you're a business owner out there and you're struggling with your cash flow, you're struggling with your finances, consider getting a fractional CFO that can help you, but it's not as costly as getting someone in full time. But you need that information. You need to know exactly what's going on in your business. And then the other ones we're increasingly helping our internal CFOs and finance teams. And it doesn't matter how big the business is. Cash flow matters. And when there's businesses, especially with lumpy cash flow, and multiple entities, and they're trying to understand what's the business looking like, and do we have enough money? Are we moving in the right places? We can help. We can definitely help. Everybody that comes to us is in a spreadsheet. We will get you out of that spreadsheet. We will make it accurate, easy to understand, easy to work with as a team. Just come and talk with us at dryrun.com. We'll get you going.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, go check it out, dryrun.com. So, all right. So we spent the first half talking about fear as fear, right? Let's talk about fear as a motivator, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And the reason I want to say that is because I've been scared. Sometimes when I do some of these seminars, right, there'd be like 125 people out there in an audience or even more. And you walk, like, man, I'm a little worried here. Or maybe it's a big pitch to something for funding or for a customer or whatever, and you're a little scared. There's something that happens to me that when I'm a little scared, my performance elevates.
Yeah.
I get better. It's like, and I can't even explain it. It's like I black out for a second, like oh shit, I killed it. The reason I think I killed it is because I can't remember it.
Yeah.
So something happens like that.
I can totally relate. And there's this level. It's just that little bit of fear, the little bit of apprehension. It's like, boom. It's like, it's motivating. And I'm not talking about paralyzing fear, but it's that apprehension, that little bit of fear, can really motivate. And like we were talking last week about just, efficiency and keeping engaged and stuff. And it's like we've just gone through a pivot. We're just like, there's always that level of fear, like someone's right at your back and it's like, we got to go. And it just keeps the wheels turning, right? It just, yeah, it can literally help performance. I'm not sure it's mentally healthy to live like that for a long time, but it can certainly help performance and keep people moving and motivated and keep that momentum going.
Well, yeah, my first job, I was a state trooper, right? So first 3 years, everybody's got to just chase taillights. But because I was in the infantry, because I was a paratrooper and I did all this hua type stuff, immediately when I turned 3 years, right, I hit my 3-year mark, they put me right on what they call the CERT team. The CERT team is the Special Emergency Response Team. And so think SWAT, right? But Missouri calls it CERT.
So not the mint.
Not the mints, yeah. But man, I tell you, there's something about those situations, because this is the team they call out when there's a manhunt or there's a high risk arrest warrant or there's hostage situations or things like that. So think about at that point in time, I had a pager even. So that's back in the 1900s, I had a pager. And when that thing went off, my whole mindset changed, because you didn't know what was happening next. You just knew that I'm having pizza with the family and now I got to go jump in the car. right? And who knows if I'm coming back tonight, right? Meaning not coming back because I'm dead, coming back because you don't know if you're going to be there for an hour or you're going to be there for 3 weeks, like we were with the A-list Ben Johns manhunt. He was a triple murder suspect that we had pinned down around Warsaw Lake, and we chased this guy for 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you what, at the end of 2 weeks, you're like going, I don't give a shit if the Girl Scouts find this guy. I'm like, oh. You're not trying to get glory. You're just like, just somebody catch this man.
Yeah.
So, but there was a certain amount of adrenaline and fear mixed together that you just feel like you are in the zone, right? There's a zone that you get into that, yeah, you're a little scared, but you're also at the highest point of your performance.
As soon as you started to describe that, everything flashed into my mind from First Blood. Totally.
Yeah,
they got the tent there, and they got the commander there, and he's like, "No, I'm here to save you," whatever. It was like, like, and that was filmed in Hope, British Columbia. And a little side note here, we have been through Hope, and that town is the opposite. If you are ever in British Columbia, you do not need to stop at Hope. And if anyone's watching from Hope, I apologize, but man, I've been to your town. You guys got to do something about that. That is not a lot of hope in that place.
Yeah,
that's a scary thing, man. Like, that is a totally different type of fear, totally different type of job and fear than. But how does it compare to some of that? Like, maybe because there probably were times where there'd be anxiety compared to like making payroll, right?
Well, what was funny about it is that it totally. I was probably the worst business owner in the world in the beginning because I didn't take things as seriously. You remember, I was in the janitorial company. I would have Karens, I'll just call them Karens, call me up and says, "You missed my waste paper basket last night, my trash can, and there's a dead spider in the windowsill." I'm like, "I'll be right over there." So I come over there and I would dump the trash and I'd get the spider. I'm like, "We good? You okay? Man. You okay?" But I would get yelled at for some janitor missing the trash can because she had tucked it up under her desk instead of putting it back where he got used to it. And I would get yelled at. I'm like, going, this is really what fires people up? I'm like, I was chasing a murder suspect just a couple of months ago. Yeah. Walking through the woods, crawling into caves looking for this guy where he could be hiding. And you're worried about this trash can or that little dead spider that's in the windowsill.
They're just transferring anger. So something going on. Yep.
Yeah, but in my mind in the car on the way over, I'm like going, "The fuck is wrong with people?" but I would still walk in and just say, "Yes, ma'am, sorry about that," and all that. But in my mind, I'm like going, "This can't be the way real life is," right? So it's a hard transition for somebody to go from the military or from law enforcement or any of those type of emergency situations to a real corporate job, right? It's a hard transition. I tell people all the time, I got cop friends, and I'm going, "Dude, go get a buffer job. Don't go to your career next. Go get a buffer job just so you understand how real people think now." Because they're not you, right? They're not cops. They're not, it isn't like in the Army, whereas if you're late to work, they can ground you to your house and dock your pay or make you do all kinds. You don't have, there's no recourse. So people, you have to get used to just people, right? And what's normal, what's really what's happening in the world.
And you know what? Like, when you describe that is so, like, in a very different way, but in a similar way, that's what you're talking about with entrepreneurs. Because, like, I talked to an entrepreneur a few weeks ago, and it was really interesting. It was on a podcast I was doing, and he pointed it out really well. He just said, he goes, businesses rarely fail because they run out of money. They actually lose momentum, or the business owner gives up. That's generally what happens. He said, one of the reasons business owners don't give up is because they have no alternative. And they have no alternative, not because they can't get a job. Well, maybe they can't. I don't know if any of us can really keep one. Like, could you go and work for somebody today? Like, think about how tough that would be after, like, I haven't worked for somebody since 2000 or something. Like, 99, I think, was the last time I had a full-time job for someone else. How would I be able to transition into a job where you have protocol and a boss and a pecking order and a this and a that and the other? That scares me probably more than anything. I don't think I could handle it.
You know, I think you're right. I mean, it would be really difficult for me. And I think less for me. I think more difficult for the person that tried to hire me.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, like a fee awful.
And I think that's why. I think that's why. I think that's why they avoid it. Rather than going, why don't you do this? I'm like going, because that doesn't work. This is the way I think. I remember when James asked me to put together a marketing plan, right, for Finnegraph early on, right? I had just left the hotel staffing company, sold it and all that type of stuff. And I was more employee there. I was this much, you know, in ownership and this much in employee. And within a half a day, I gave him 36 pages. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? What am I doing with this? It's like going, A, that was too fast. B, that's too much. So like, I don't know, man. I'm like going, when I make plans for my business, I want to cover everything because I don't want anybody to, you know, to ask more questions or be vague about what the commander or my intent is, right? I want to be able to just point to a document and say, this is what we're going to do.
And that's the thing that I think is the biggest challenge for people that aren't entrepreneurs that maybe don't understand. They think, well, you're an entrepreneur, you have all this freedom. And they think we just screw around all day. No, we don't screw around all day. But the hardest transition, the freedom part would probably be secondary. The hardest transition is going in and you're wired to sprint, you're wired to push, and you're wired to make decisions. And when suddenly you're kind of like, well, you got to slow down. You got to listen to somebody else's dumb idea. And, you know, it's like, I want my own dumb ideas. That's the only ones I want to follow.
Right. Wait, you know, it's funny. The most uncomfortable I am in business, the most uncomfortable is dead space. Like, I got this done, and what am I do next? If there's dead space or I'm waiting for something else to happen before I can take the next step, that time, like my developer right now, if I'm ahead of him and I'm ready to move on and he's like, I'm waiting, I hate that wait. I hate the dead space.
Yeah. You can't, like, when I sold my creative agency, this is like 12, 15 years ago. I don't even remember it's a while ago, right? What I do remember is that transition was the hardest thing. Like that basically, when I got up the next morning and it's like my inbox email, like I didn't have that email anymore. Like it wasn't full of 500 messages with all of this stuff going on. It's almost a panic. Like, really, if I look back now, I'm like, might have just been smart to take 3 months off and just frickin' relax for a little bit and then start something else. I had incorporated another company within about 3 days because I needed something to kind of hang on to. And then I started to go, well, now what do I do? And it eventually, like I did a bunch of consulting and this, that, and the other, and eventually came up with this idea for Dry Run, and it turned into where, but that's why my company name isn't like Dry Run Incorporated as Lever Media Incorporated, because I incorporated a company before I could like blink, because I couldn't even fathom just having nothing to do. Like it didn't even compute right. And it's a weird time, right?
Yeah, because there's something about that not being able to do. Most people, like, all right, so they're playing lots of clips right now because of Doge and the government of office space. I was like, what do you do here? And the guy's like, well, I go to my desk and I zone out for about an hour. He's going through his whole spiel. Oh my God. That would drive me batty. Some people love the dead time. They love the waste time. I do not like my time wasted. I do not like dead space, right? I had to fill it with something.
I couldn't handle it. And like when I had our creative agency, like I've said, 70% of our customer base were government agencies. And so we did a lot of meetings every day. Like we're over at one thing I didn't realize is how many freaking buildings in town actually house entire floors of government workers. Like they're all over. They're buildings worth of government workers. Like it's unbelievable how many people are there. And it's funny how many meetings I went to, and there would be like 6-8 people there. And I'm like, I really only need to meet with like the one that is our main contact. People just on time. They'd come in, they'd grab their coffee, they'd be there like their pastry. They would hang out, right? And do nothing.
You probably heard me say it before. I'm like going, the easiest thing in the world to do when I first got on with Finnegraph was get meetings with banks. Everybody would give you a meeting, demo this, demo that. I'm like going, but conversion was like impossible.
Yep. Same thing.
Yeah. We started calling it, oh my God, I'm corporate entertainment. I'm there to fill a spot on a calendar so they don't have to do something else. I'm just like watching a TV show that day.
I remember one banker, because I like early on in Dry when I talked with a lot of bankers, and I remember one banker, and because I had worked up the chain, and I finally got someone that's actually like pretty high up, and he literally just goes, man, he goes, the problem is, I get it, but we have no way to really work with a for-profit business. And also I'm like, and so I was just filling people's time. And he was the first one to go like, it's probably not really worth your time to go down this path because it's so much time. And they didn't really, a lot of people meet with you, but would the ball really move forward? It seemed like a bit of a struggle for us. So it was interesting,
Yeah, because if you're talking to people in corporations, if they have an empty spot on their calendar, somebody else might fill it that gives them work. Yeah, they're like, oh, if I take this demo, then I'm sorry, I'm busy.
Yeah, exactly. They want to talk with people that are going to make them money and make make them move up in the world, right? So very, very different world.
Hey, I mean, but like you're the type of guy that sticks to his knitting all the time. So, come on.
Actually paraphrased that. That wasn't even it's actually sticking to your knitting, but whatever. You're taking some liberties there. I think we both kind of wedged those in this week.
All right. So this is the terrible secret word week, right? It's a terrible one, but now I don't even know where I was going with that. But I thought it was going to be a good transition, but I butchered it. So I'll own mine. We
both, I didn't think mine was that much of a force. I thought it was early. That's all it was. I was getting early on it.
What scares you most now, today? What scares you most?
As a business owner, like, of course it filters down to dollars, but it's choppy out there right now. Right? Like it's so people are hanging on to their dollars. There's a lot of uncertainty, which means, are we going to get conversions like we expect? Are they going to come through? It's not a big fear, but there is a little bit of we're a Canadian based company, but we mostly sell to the US, and then we're looking at potential tariffs and what would that, if that actually probably won't affect us, but you do have to think about it and you have to be conscious of it, right? But it does come down a lot to sales, growth, revenue. That's the big thing. The other one, though, that I will mention, because we're a software company, there's always that thing hanging over your head where you're always concerned about security. Always, because every time you open up, you look at the news, somebody's got hacked, somebody's got this, somebody's got that. So we're always got that fear. But that fear also makes sure that you when you do things and your team does things and you're building those things, that is always considered, that's always thought about, because there's always that stress there, right?
Yeah, that's that's where I've always had kind of the philosophy, like in software, if I'm going to integrate and bring in people's data, I try not to hold or house or even pull in anything sensitive. I don't care about somebody's social security number. I don't care about their pay data, their addresses. I really don't care about that stuff. So it doesn't add value to my calculations. So I don't even touch it in the integration. So that's part of the ways that, we try to be secure, on my side is, let's just avoid sensitive data that we don't need. Hey, don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Our philosophy is like the almost like need to know basis. The minimum we need to know, and it doesn't even have to. We don't want even identifying information, and because if it's just numbers, it's just numbers, right? Like but yeah, like we actually go through that. We don't take anything we don't need, and we wall things off and we encrypt everything and we like all these layers, but it's still something that is always a concern. And it's not even in our app. Like I know I've had a couple of friends that have been hacked, and one was actually held sort of digital ransom, and it came through a phishing scheme that got and worked their way through their systems. And it wasn't even in their product or service, but they got into everything else. And in fact, I don't know if it was one of our customers, but I heard of somebody in the last couple of weeks that had their CRM hacked and they're holding it hostage. Like, shit, like that.
I'm like, those people aren't buying anyway. Hell with it. Just you keep them.
Yeah, exactly. Screw you.
I got a text message today from I forget if Maine or Delaware. It's saying, hey, you owe tolls for whatever hell road I drove up there. I'm like,
sure
well,
you do.
Good luck finding me. Good luck, because I've never even been to that state. But yeah, that's a big scam right now, trying to get people to pay these unpaid tolls in text message. That's kind of the new one coming. I got another call. I got a call from somebody saying that they were part of the sheriff's department. I had a warrant for my arrest, and I needed to contact them for payment of whatever fine I missed. And when they said it, I live in Bexar County, right? But it's spelled Bexar. So the sheriff that works for Bexar County said he was Lieutenant so-and-so. First of all, lieutenants wouldn't make this call. I know that from law enforcement. Second of all, somebody that works there doesn't call it Bexar County. Like, yeah, good luck finding me, man. Just send the paddy wagon.
And so did you actually talk with them, or was it just like a voicemail or something?
No, it is a voicemail, but yeah, it's still.
I'm surprised
if I was to talk to them.
Yeah, because the scammers rarely leave voicemail. Sometimes they do.
This one did, right? And I think that's the new thing. I'm going to leave you a voicemail. I'm going to sound authoritative. I'm going to have some credibility with local government or something like that. And I'm like, I'm just not the type of guy that breaks laws. So good luck finding me.
One thing that annoyed the hell out of me was I forgot about a month ago. For about a week, every day, I got voicemails in Chinese.
Nice.
And I would just I would block the number, and then they would use a different number and come in. And I'm like, you're just like, it keeps showing up. I'm like, now I have to check my stupid voicemail and delete this message. It was so annoying. But after about 3 weeks, I must have blocked enough numbers that they had to stop.
So you said Chinese, and if you would have said Japanese, I would have said it's probably the jean company where you buy your blue jeans from. They're probably trying to give you new blue jeans.
Then I would answer, but to be honest, like I actually, I obviously I can't speak the language, but I do recognize it. I couldn't tell you if it was Cantonese or Mandarin, but I do recognize that it was either Cantonese or Mandarin. So, but yeah. Anyway,
well, good. Hey, good one, right? I mean, and it was something that was on my mind about just fears, right, and how they can help or how they can hurt or hinder. So, here's my guidance. My stick with your gut, right? In doubt, or when in doubt, don't. That's kind of one of the things I always try to do. Is like, hey, if it doesn't feel right, just don't do it, right? Yeah. Or let it simmer because it will flush itself out as good or bad. Right. Unless it's about safety, unless it's about health or people getting hurt, those type of things, you don't have to make any decision immediately. Let it just figure it out. Just calm down, figure it out.
Yeah. And talk with people, talk with other entrepreneurs, depending on the situation. Talk with your accountant, talk with your CFO, talk with your lawyer. Like that it's amazing how much a quick call to your lawyer, your accountant can also just like smooth things out. It's like, oh, okay, good. That's awesome. I get it now. I know what I need to do or probably not even need to do. So, there's people there that can help you. That you can lean on.
So, hey, thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Mike and Blaine, Business, Beer, and BS. Go check us out at mikeandblaine.com. Any of your favorite podcast place, you can subscribe, you can like, you can tell your friends.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, we never asked it. Tell your friends about the show. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. We love to hear from you too. Like, you can definitely chat with us, leave us messages, like get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.